was just like expecting the worst to happen this year. And in some ways there have been challenges, but I'm in a place that supports me. It's so cool. It's so cool. I love astrocartography so much. This fucking work is my favorite thing ever. Ever! I love astrocartography. It's like everything to me. Hey guys, it's me, Helena. Welcome back to my channel. And I thought it would be kind of nice to have a little sit-down video where I just tell you my story and tell you about the lines that I've lived on, as well as how I got into astrocartography and where it all started for me. If you don't already know, I talk all about astrocartography on this channel, and I have tons of free content, blog posts, videos, and a free astrocartography guide, which you can get down below in the description. And I also have courses and I do readings as well. So if you wanted to learn how to do astrocartography as a beginner, I have a beginner's course all on astrocartography down below, as well as my main 7-week course program on reading relocation charts. So with all that further away, let's get started into this little story time. I hope you have a cozy drink or a drink of choice on you. Feel free to kind of have this on in the background as you're doing laundry or whatever you're doing. I'm just going to be sharing my story and how astrocartography has really impacted and changed my life. I never had any plans to be an astrologer or to do astrocartography work at all. Like, that was never something I ever thought I would do in my life. But it's a part of my natal promise and I'm living it, but it kind of fell into my lap. It like came into my lap. I've always loved astrology. I've loved astrology since I was in high school. Like, I've always been reading astrology books since 2011 was when I got really into astrology. And it's always been a thing I've done on the side, but I never really talked about it. And then I moved to France, where my relocated natal chart shifted. And then suddenly the ruler of my ascendant and the ruler of my midheaven, 10th house and first house, they all went to the 9th house of astrology and foreign lands and foreign cultures. And that 9th house is where my Jupiter, North Node, and Pluto all relocated to when I moved to France. Suddenly, all these themes of astrology and foreign cultures and foreign lands and wanting to understand culture and going to different places, long distance travel, all of these things became a really important part of my life. At first, it was about French culture. I used to make lots of videos on my main YouTube channel, which you can follow me here if you're curious about my main channel on YouTube. And astrology and astrocartography and astrology always being a private thing. But now I'm public with it, and now I'm talking about it and sharing these things with you, because I hope it inspires you and I hope it encourages you to go to these different parts of the world, to activate different stories and to time it so that you can experience these different aspects of consciousness and parts of the self and them coming out in your life in a very active way. So much of my life kind of clicked into place. I think of it as like a clicking, because my 9th house has always been a part of my career natal promise in my birth chart. Like, the 9th house, the 10th house, and the 7th house are the areas of life that are connected to career. But that 9th house never, ever became activated in my life. Like, the 9th house has never been a pertinent part of my life before. I mean, I've always been studying astrology since high school. I've always loved astrology, but it's never been a thing that, like, became very active. But by relocating to France, suddenly I now have all this detail of Jupiter, Pluto, and the North Node all in the 9th house all of a sudden. And something you should know about relocated charts is that they take time to settle into. It's not like you go somewhere and it's instantly you're feeling the 9th house activation. Not at all. But rather, the longer you are in a place, you start to really embody that relocated chart in a new way, and it starts to kind of become part of your life. And then you could start looking at transits and progressions on that secondary source, the relocated chart, and it's like, whoa, like over time, as the years progress, you start living that new relocated chart. And that's how it's been for me. So much of my life just took off when I moved here to France. Like, so many things that I thought were hard, or I thought it was hard to do certain things, or it all became easy all of a sudden. Like, things just started flowing. It's never been like that in my life. Things have always been hard. Like, I hate saying that, but like, starting a business, making money. These types of things, it's always felt hard to me. And I moved to France and it's like everything just clicked. Everything just clicked into place. And right now I'm in a really hard part of my life. My zodiacal releasing, I'm in a hard year. I'm in my worst zodiacal releasing period, most challenging zodiacal releasing period. My annual perfections this year is rough. Like Mars is activated, Aries is activated. I was not expecting anything good to happen really this year. I was planning for the worst with all of these timing of things that are kind of going on in my chart. You know, Saturn opposite my natal moon, Saturn opposite my natal Chiron. I'm in a Mars perfected year, my worst planet. You know, my zodiacal releasing, I'm in my hardest year. Like I was just like expecting the worst to happen this year. And in some ways there have been challenges, but I'm in a place that supports me. I'm in a place that gives me resilience and ease and the ability to get back up quickly and that sense of optimism. And I am on a Jupiter line right now at the moment. I'm directly on my Jupiter line in Helsinki, Finland. So let's just put that out there, some context for you. But regardless, you know, I live in a part of the world where my chart is really supported. My relocated chart is really supported. I'm on great lines. And even though I've got some hard transits at the moment, I've got some hard timing with things that I have releasing, all these different things, I'm in a place where I feel supported. And so I want to leave this off to you now. You can live in a place, you can choose to live in a place that supports you, that helps you. You know, maybe you've got a really nice moon. Maybe your moon's exalted in Taurus and you've got a beautiful trine to Venus. Going to that moon line would be really nice. Even if you've got hard transits, even if you've got hard things going on in your life, you could go to that moon line and it'll feel different. And that's the thing about astrocartography. Astrocartography affects your quality of life. And it affects the way you feel emotionally. That's really big. Yes, as Jim Lewis talks about in his book, you are, you know, activating certain parts of consciousness. You are, you know, kind of activating certain themes and certain archetypes in the natal promise of your chart. You are. But it's also affecting how you feel. It really does. The closer you are to a planetary line, that energy is just so in the air, especially if you're like within 150 miles of a line. It's really strong energy. So let's start from the beginning, shall we? I was born on a moon midheaven line, moon on the MC. My moon's in Leo. It's trining Mars, squaring my sun, and squaring Pluto. So it's a little bit of detail there. And being on my Leo moon on the midheaven line was very interesting. It was all about wanting to be an actress, right? We think of Leo, entertainer, performer, flamboyant, dramatic, warm-hearted, generous. Being on that moon MC line in the 10th house was all about career for me. Like I remember as a kid growing up just really wanting to be an actress and be seen for being a performer. There's also a lot of stories with my mom, and something you might find with your own moon line is a story or connection with your mother. I also have a Jupiter ascendant line. Jupiter was rising several hundred miles away, but still impacting me there in California. And I also had a moon Pluto Perrin, which is dramatic and a lot of highs and lows, obsession, and a lot of emotions. When I was 18 years old, I moved to New York City, Mercury descendant line, and I met my husband there. It was a big place for me socially. You know, the descendant is about other people or things that are kind of reinforcing your projection or something unconscious within you in an external way. It's something that's coming to you. And I met a lot of people on that Mercury descendant line, relocated to the 7th house. I met my husband there. My husband has a Mercury ascendant line there. So it's really interesting, that kind of weird parallels. My social life was really important to me. Dating, relationships, all became central focus. I also went to college there and did a lot of studying on my Mercury line. Big theme with my Mercury and Gemini there. And I also had a Venus Chiron Paran going through New York City, which was a lot of rejection, healing, acceptance, and allowance of what it is that I need love in and what do I value in partnership and relationships. All themes of heartbreak and relationships and things that I went through when I was living in New York City. I got married around when I was 23 years old, and I moved to France with my husband, and we moved to my Venus IC line. It was September of 2018. when my husband and I moved to France, to Strasbourg, right on that Venus IC line, when I went on a solo trip to Amsterdam. And I was walking around Amsterdam alone, listening to a podcast on Earth vortices. And it was raining, and I was window shopping and looking at all these cool New Age crystal shops. And I was listening to this podcast on Earth vortices and how there are certain pockets of the world that have like this energy, these energy centers based on the chakras of the body. And I was so fascinated by this. This topic was like something that like just, I was fascinated by this. I was obsessed with this idea of Earth vortices and like, do places in the world have energies? Like, is this a thing? And so I Googled it. I Googled, do places have energies or something like that? And I came across astrocartography. And it was that fall that I started learning about astrocartography, right when I moved to Europe in the fall of 2018. And for several years, I just would look up my friends' maps, and I would look at people's maps and my husband's maps and my friends and my mom and me, and I would notice astounding parallels with themes or things that kind of became activated or became more important or potent in that person's life when they were closer to certain lines. But I found my home on my Venus IC line, and specifically on my Sun-Uranus parent, which I have Sun trine Uranus in my chart. And so there's a crossing on the map somewhere of that Sun-Uranus, and that creates a parent or a latitude crossing that goes right around the world, right around the globe. And so in Strasbourg, which is where I lived for the first 2 years after I got married on that Sun-Uranus, it was such an important place for me. You know, Strasbourg became this part of the world that became really special for me because I feel like when I was in Strasbourg, it was the first time in my life where I realized this is what makes me different. This is what makes me authentic. This is how I step into and lead with my authenticity. It was a real important place for that. But it was also a place of me understanding and learning how to live slowly and simply and notice the simple joys in my life more and be appreciative of those things and learning, but also that sense of like learning and communicating that with others. My Venus in Gemini, that Venus IC line in the 4th house relocated in the chart, going right through Strasbourg. So it's a really important place for me. I also have Saturn rising very close by, but I do like my Saturn ascendant. I like Saturn in general. I've made peace with Saturn, if you will. And so I relish and embrace Saturn and the energies, the maturity, the lessons in maturity that Saturn brings us. But it was actually in the fall of 2021. I was living in Corsica, this island in the south of France, and I was in meditation on my yoga mat with a cup of coffee in the morning, as I always did. And I went into the Akashic Records, which is something I use. I use the Akashic Records. I started opening the records in 2018 before I got married, and it's been a part of my life ever since. I get a lot of answers and clarity there in that space, which I've made some videos. I have some blog posts. I'll include those blog posts down below if you want to read about it or learn about it. But I was in the Akashic Records. I was deep in meditation for like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and I got this knowingness that kind of came out. And it wasn't a voice or anything like that. It was just this knowingness, this peaceful knowingness of you need to write a blog post about astrocartography. You need to start talking about astrocartography. You need to make a video series on astrocartography. And I just knew it to be true. I knew that it was something I had to do. And that's always the feeling I get when my intuition is like connecting with me or telling me something. It's like a peaceful knowing you need to do this right now. And I've learned to trust that voice because for my entire life, every time that I've trusted that instinct or that gut feeling when I'm in meditation and I take action on it, amazing things come from it. Like wonderfully abundant, incredibly fulfilling things always come from those actions that I take after being in meditation. And so I got up from my yoga mat. I wrote down a list in my journal of like 10 video ideas. I got up and I wrote a blog post that day, posted a blog post, and then I think it was that week, like literally that week, I batched a ton of videos. I made like 6 or 7 astrocartography videos and I posted them on this channel when I first got started with this YouTube channel. And so I just talked and I just shared my experience about what I had experienced on all these different lines that I've lived on in my life and what you could expect as well. As I was doing that, I was doing a ton of free readings, ton of free client readings. I was going on podcasts talking about astrocartography. I was telling everyone I could on my blog, everywhere, that I loved astrocartography. So I started doing some readings and I started charging a little bit. I think I was charging like $200 for a reading. Started doing readings here or there. It wasn't consistent, sporadic, but I was doing some readings starting off. But then it was that summer, the summer of 2022, when my business went full-time, when all of my readings went full-time, and I started doing this literally like 3 readings a day, 5 days a week. And I was like, oh my God, whoa. Like things literally, my business took off like within a span of a week. It was some week in the summer of 2022 when like literally it just took off like a freaking rocket. And I was so surprised. And I think a lot of that has to do with blogging and with YouTube and just being a consistent blogger over the many years. I've created a good SEO, Google relationship. The bots on Google have crawled my website many times. I feel like the Google bots trust me at this point. And my blog post on astrocartography went to the first page of Google. And I just suddenly I was making money, like doing something I really loved, which is crazy because I had been doing YouTube for years, making creative, artistic YouTube videos. And like, I was never making good money with that. It was so much work, so much time for very little money. I think it was that previous year I had made $11,000 doing YouTube. So it just goes to show, I mean, like there's not a lot of money in YouTube, right? And so when I found this new thing that I loved and I was so passionate about, and also here's the thing, when you're a YouTuber or a content creator, it's so isolating. You're always alone. You're always alone in your home, just like filming videos. But there's no like in-person connection or just relationship, that personal emotional fulfillment of connecting with people and helping people solve a problem. That is something that I think that all human beings are fulfilled when we solve problems, specifically when we solve problems for other humans. And I noticed for me that I just felt so much more emotionally like fulfilled and like I was here with purpose and I was doing something important and I was living a meaningful life, being of service to the world and helping people, but also getting to form really neat relationships with people and client relationships. Something that I hold very dearly to my heart is having repeat clients and having them come back to me over the months and years and getting to know their families, getting to know who they are, their partner, and building that trust and that wonderful, almost kindred spirit connection with them over the years and seeing them grow and change and their lives change and hearing their personal stories. It's something I really value in my life because I love and value relationships. And so that took off and that was incredible. And then I moved to my Mercury line. And it was all this studying and research and intense focus of learning and integrating research and education and books and knowledge. I remember taking so many courses in astrology and astrocartography at that point when I was on my Mercury IC line. But also here's the thing, you guys may remember from my other video that I had posted previously, but Mercury is squaring my Saturn, which is fine. You know, my Mercury's in Gemini, so I'm not really worried about it, but living there, especially when the transit Saturn was literally crossing over my ascendant, the Saturn rising, Saturn on the ascendant was literally, that line was like literally moving right over where I was living, and Saturn was on my ascendant by a degree, and I got so, I don't want to say depressed because I wasn't depressed, but I was definitely like overthinking everything and like super critical of everything and almost like I couldn't have fun and I couldn't just like be my normal self, which is goofy and silly and lighthearted and big picture thinker. Like I couldn't do that when Saturn was on my ascendant at all. And it was really hard to be on that Mercury line when Saturn was crossing Mercury. It was like I was overthinking everything and checking everything a million times and just being a little paranoid. Which is kind of more of a Pluto-Mercury thing, but I digress. Now I live on my Venus IC line again, but now I'm on a Uranus lunar node parent and a Neptune lunar node parent, so it's a little bit different. I haven't spent much time there to really gather data on it, so I can't really say what that's about yet. But right now I'm currently on my Jupiter descendant line, and let me tell you, if you time your travels so that you go to a certain cool line, your relocated chart is strong, your line is cool, and you time it so that you've got an amazing transit happening at the exact same time when you go to that line. Wow, that's magical. That's when you're at the right place at the right time and you're timing things divinely. So I hope that my story inspires you in any way. inspires you to decide, to make decisions in your life, to go to a place that is more supportive for you, and also to try it out in your own life. Relocate your natal chart to some places, see how the story shifts, see how your Mars is still the same, but it's moving in a different area of life. Notice how that changes things. It's so cool. It's so cool. I love astrocartography so much. This fucking work is my favorite thing ever. Ever. I love astrocartography. It's like everything to me. I found my home in the world. I love Strasbourg, France. It's my favorite city in the entire world. I want to retire there. I want to grow old there. I want to die there. I want my ashes put in the sea, or not in the sea, in the river. That Venus IC line, it's my home. It's my place in the world. That Sun trine Uranus creating a Perrin, that latitude going right through the city of Strasbourg. It's the place I feel most authentic, most me, most original, most myself. I feel confident on my Sun Uranus Perrin in Strasbourg. It's amazing. That just goes to show that, moving 30 minutes, taking a drive, 30 minutes, an hour, you could change the energy. You could change the story of what's happening for you based on that latitude crossing just by driving an hour north, an hour south. Really big deal are those parans. Sometimes you have to move or wait for the transits, wait for the right time. Everything just starts falling together. Everything just starts coming together. And it's magical when that happens, when there's a click. And for me, when I moved to France, there was a click. Now, it wasn't immediate. It was not an immediate thing, and I should, emphasize that. It took time. I settled into my new relocated chart. I started creating a home in my relocated chart, right? And that's, you'll feel the lines immediately when you go somewhere. The planetary lines, but also the parents, the latitude crossings. Same with local space lines, also a big deal. But the relocated chart takes time. And you start settling into that with time. And for me, it was the same. I settled into my relocated chart maybe 2 years, 2 to 3 years is when it started to really click. Everything started clicking around the 2-year mark. All right, so that's it from me. I wanted to share my story, share a little recap of how my life really clicked for me, and in hopes that it will inspire you or encourage you to take a little drive, go on a little road trip, and also trust yourself and trust your timing. Trust your timing. Everything's going to unfold as exactly as it's meant to. There's no need to worry about it or rush it or anything. It's all going to click at the exact time it's going to click. And all you have to do is enjoy the ride. Hope you guys have a magical day. Be sure to like this video, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want to be notified. Hit the notification bell if you want to be notified of new videos as they come out. And I'm sending you such a big hug. I hope you have a magical day and happy travels. Bye.